In this quickcast, we're going to show you how to conduct surveys and polls using LearnSpace. In this particular quickcast, we're going to focus on one half of our survey functionality, specifically typing-based questions, and that involves true or false, multiple choice, and short answer questions. First, you'll notice I've got the LearnSpace client open here on my desktop, and I've already got a connection established. And I'd like to point out that the tabs here have been modified using the plus tab button. I simply wanted to limit the number of tabs here only to those that will be used here in this quickcast. Now notice when I click on survey, I have the option here to start a survey. So I'm going to click on start survey. That opens up a new box that's going to ask me for some additional information on the actual poll that I'm going to conduct. And I've got some questions here that I've prepared. I'm going to go ahead and open up those. And first, what LearnSpace wants to know is what question do I want to ask and survey with the room. So I'm going to go ahead and copy what I have here prepared, and I'm going to click on paste question here, this button here. Next, I want to go ahead and select anonymous. For this first question, I simply want to ask the class, should we move on to the next subject? And what I'm trying to identify here is, are the students in this particular session ready to move on, or do we need to spend more time on the question at hand? So when I click ask, you'll note I now have a new piece of information that's displayed in front of me. This is the histogram. This is going to be where you are going to filter information and prepare it to either share or at least to make some decision based on the poll itself. The view and layout are fairly simple. There's a few filters here on the right hand side. Information is represented graphically here in the actual histogram here. Now as I turn my attention to the actual responses themselves, I'll notice I have a few different things. I have an N, I have no, Y, yes. These are the actual typed responses that are coming back and the relative number of those responses. What I need to do is go ahead and make this information useful. So I'm going to first sort it by popularity. I can sort it alphabetically if I want to, but I'm going to start with popularity. What's the most common response thus far? And I'm also going to note that I still have all of these different answers. So the first thing I want to do is ignore case. It's not important to me whether it's a capital yes or lowercase yes. That's not really important to the information. The second filter I'm going to do is apply first letter only. It's really not important to me that I have a yes or a Y. So what this filter is going to do is take all of the student responses that begin with a Y and put them in the same bucket. I'll note as soon as I do that, I'm left with 3, and I've got this M here. And M is actually maybe. That was one student that came back and said they were maybe ready to move on. So what I want to do is go ahead and focus on the yes or the no's, which means I want to filter by the top 2 responses. Now once I've done this, I can take a look and drill down on the information. I can select the list tab and I can see the actual relative information, the specific responses. I can sort the columns if I need to. And I can also look under the individual section, although I did put anonymous, so there won't be any information listed here. Moving back to the histogram, if I want to share this with the class to provide everybody feedback, I simply click Share Histogram and it's displayed on the classroom display here. Now all the students can see the responses. If I want to unshare it, I simply click that same button again and it disappears. So let's say I had some content up there. I had the question displayed. If I click this again, it simply appears in the place of that content on the classroom display. And one more click again removes it and actually restores the content that was there previously. So I have a seamless experience. So now I'm going to go ahead and close the question. Closing the question means I'm done getting answers, and at this point I can see everybody that responded. I don't see their answers because it was anonymous, but I can tell by each student who went ahead and responded to the question. I can reopen the question if I choose to, if there's some students that were late, or I can simply go on to the next new question. Now for this question, I want to do things a little bit differently. I actually want to use the C screen for question default. And what that means is the content that I have here on the display that I'm sharing on the classroom display is actually what I'm going to use to pose the question to the classroom. So I want their focus to be on this classroom display. That's why I've got C screen for question. This will actually be the question that's sent out to students. I can do anonymous if I want to, but this time I actually want to track responses. So I'm going to go ahead and click Ask, and you'll see I've defaulted to the Individuals tab, which is where I left off. So now I'm starting to see the responses directly by student, but let's go back to the histogram. I would like to see things laid out graphically, and because this is multiple choice, let's go ahead and sort this alphabetically, and let's see all the responses. And at this point, all of my previous filters are still there, so you'll notice I'm only seeing lowercase, and I'm only seeing the first letter responses. So now as the rest of the class starts to report in, I want to take a look at the specific information. The right answer is actually C, and I want to see, drilling down into the list of information, how that breaks out. Again, I can sort the information. I can still modify ignore case and the filters if I want to from this view as well. And then I can look at the individuals themselves and see which students provided which answer. If I want to see if Donald got the correct answer, and also what part of group he's with. He's part of group A. There was a total of 12 that responded A. And then I want to go back to the histogram to see things again visually. So I can again share this with the class. Everyone can see it. I can unshare it. And again, review the total number of responses. Once I'm done, I close the question and move on to the new question. So for this question, I actually want to ask an open-ended question. I don't want to give a multiple choice true-false answer. I actually want them to respond with their own specific inputs. And I'm going to use what I have here on the display, what's being shared on the classroom display. Simple geometry question, solve for B. And it's a short answer, so I'm looking for them to actually type this in. So when I go ahead and click ask, I can see the question responses starting to come in. And I'll note right away, these are actually just individual numbers. It's because I've got the first letter only filter still selected. So if I unselect that, I can see the changes. If I reselect it, it actually limits it. Because this is a short answer survey, I don't want to limit to first letter only. I actually want to see all of the inputs come back, so I don't want to filter that. So I'm going to unselect that. Going to the list, I can see the actual details on how people responded, and I can also, again, go to individuals and look at the responses. I can ask Daniel why he arrived at that specific answer, dive into the details there. Returning to the histogram again, I can share the results with the class again very quickly just by clicking on Share Histogram. And when I'm done, I simply click Close Question. And again, at that point, the survey is closed. No more answers will be taken back. So let's go ahead and explore the final piece of this. If I want to export the results of the survey for future reference, either for grading or just to have on hand for my own records, I can do that by selecting the button here in the top right, the little disk drive button. That prompts me to save a comma-separated values file, which I can use with Excel. Also, if I simply end the survey itself, I'll be prompted to see if I want to go ahead and export those questions. I'll go ahead and select yes, and I'll type in a name, select save. So all the results of the survey have been stored in an Excel-friendly format, so I can refer to them later if I want to, again, use this for grading or just for reference on how the particular class went.